Oregon's move to decriminalize hard drugs, an abject failure so far. There's one stat that I'm going to read here today that you're going to be like, oh, I knew it, but just to hear it is another thing. Like, oh, that's not good. Let's get into it. Let's see what we got going on here. 2 years after Oregon residents voted to decriminalize hard drugs and dedicate hundreds of millions of dollars to treatment, few people have requested the services, and the state has been slow to channel the funds. All right, so we got a failure to communicate the funds to folks. That doesn't surprise me. And this is government, right? And this is Oregon government at best. When voters passed the state's pioneering Drug Addiction Treatment and Recovery Act in 2020, Measure 110, the emphasis was on treatment as much as on decriminalizing possession of personal use amounts of heroin, cocaine, meth, and other drugs. So you can carry around a small amount, but sometimes the amount, I'm like, how long is that personal? You got quite a stash there. That's a big personal. You're really going in ham on the meth, aren't you? You know what I mean? It's kind of like, all right, who decided personal use versus here's what we're going to distribute, you know? But Oregon still has among the highest addiction rates in the country. Is that shocking? It's not shocking to me at all. I'm surprised it's not the highest. Fatal overdoses have increased almost 20% over the previous year, with over 1,000 dead. We've got, 110, 117,000, something like that across the United States last year that died from drug overdoses, and we're decriminalizing drugs? I mean, what direction are we headed in here that makes sense? Over half of addiction treatment programs in the state lack capacity to meet demand because they don't have enough staff and funding, according to testimony before lawmakers. All right, so that's what some of this measure was supposed to get the money out on. Supporters want more states to follow Oregon's lead, saying decriminalization reduces the stigma of addiction and helps people who use drugs from going to jail and being saddled with criminal records. That is all ideal. In a perfect world, that would work. The folks that we're dealing with that are homeless, that are doing the drugs, that are doing this stuff, that's a wildly different set of the population. These are not people lining up to get help. Granted, there are some people, from that population that do want to get services, that do want to get help, that do want to get housing. But there is such a large crush of people that are described by this, the stigma of addiction, that just want to keep doing this. They're not going to go looking for the help that the hundreds of millions of dollars here are pointing towards. How Oregon is faring will almost certainly be taken into account if other states consider decriminalizing. I think right now other states are looking at Oregon going, oh, that's not a good look. Wow, Mayor Ted is really struggling there. He can't really seem to get his arms around solutions to anything. And that is literally what we've been covering here on News for Reasonable People, right? Podcast after podcast after podcast. I did take a break from dunking on Portland, and I did one on San Diego. Bill Walton getting chased around his local park early in the morning while riding a bike. He got assaulted. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that goes on. They don't care that he's, an NBA world champion and he's 6'11" and has arms that go 14 feet in either direction, right? They're going to chase him down because they're nuts. They're on drugs, whatever it is. Some people want to take issue with me calling these folks crazy. To me, I defend that statement because you've got folks that have mental issues. All right. They've got stuff going on. And then you take those people and put them on, self-prescribed pain medications in the form of fentanyl or meth or whatever it is. And that makes them literally just crazy. They're already, if they're not there already, the drugs get them there. And when I say crazy, that's what I mean most of the time. Steve Allen, Behavioral Health Director of the Oregon Health Authority, acknowledged the rocky start. And by rocky start, he means this program just flat doesn't work. Even as he announced a true milestone that had been reached with more than $302 million being sent to facilities to help people get off drugs, or at least use them more safely. Ooh, okay. Yeah. I think the folks that voted for this in Oregon were under the impression it was going to get people off the drugs, because the people using needles in the parks, leaving them there, so when little Johnny and little Susie go to use their merry-go-round, have to encounter that, ask mom and dad or dad or whoever took them to the park, hey, what's this? Yeah, those are some of the issues that we're trying to square away with helping get people off drugs. Now, this sentence also says, or at least use them more safely. That's not what I'm concerned about. I am concerned about their safety using drugs. But if you put fentanyl in your system right now, if you take any of these drugs that are out there, there's a good chance you got fentanyl in it. We know it. It's ongoing. Maybe it's rainbow colored fentanyl, right? That seems to be a big trend. I covered that a while ago. Yeah. It's like, the cereal that's all multicolored. Oh, it's so pretty. I'll have some. Yeah. Rainbow covered fentanyl. The road to get here has not been easy. This is the politician talking. Oregon is the first state to try such a bold and transformative approach. Allen told a state Senate committee Wednesday. Okay. Some guy talking state Senate committee. Such a bold and transformative approach. I have one question. How is that working out for you? How's that working out for you? Yeah. This whole lead up, this story so far is just a lead up to, it's not working out all that well. One expert, though, told the lawmakers the effort is doomed unless people with addictions are nudged into treatment. Well, I attended the premiere, meaning I sat right here at this desk, and I don't know if you guys know that I'm basically attending most all of the 9 a.m. premieres. So Monday through Friday, I'm here, 9 a.m. Mike time, Seattle time. You guys can join on in. We've got a chat, going, and comments down the side. Nobody sees you, or, if you don't want to chat, but you can chat and put in comments. So many of the chat comments when I talk about homeless issues are round them up, get them into treatment, get them the mental health care that they need. But you got to force them to do it because they're not going to do it on their own. Now, I 100% agree with you, but could you imagine the CNN 24/7 reel if we started picking people off the streets and, putting them into wherever we're going to put them into? I mean, that's what we used to do. And then we decided, that's not very nice. And then we dumped all the people out from the mental institutions, and they're on the streets now. And then we dumped a lot of people out from the prisons, and we just let them roam around. And then we wonder why crime goes up, and we're not getting people into treatment. We're just creating more people that need more treatment. So one expert, though, told the lawmakers the effort is doomed unless people with addictions are nudged into treatment. Now, nudged is such a nice word. When you get to somebody who needs to get into treatment, there's no nudging. You've got to full court press them into, you got to shoulder block them into there. I mean, people that are on opioids or whatever, fentanyl or whatever, they don't want to go into treatment because they're on a run and they know it's going to suck to come off these drugs. These drugs are horrible. They're horrible. That's why you see the people, we talk about the cartoon characters from hell walking around on the streets of Portland. It's absolutely true. These drugs have absolutely ruined these folks' lives. Missing teeth. They look crazy because they are crazy. Dudes aren't wearing shirts, and super skinny, and, no shoes, no socks sometimes. And I'm talking about the worst ones. Other ones are able to function okay, but all of these folks need more than a nudge into treatment. A nudge ain't going to do it. It's not going to do it. You're going to have to start forcing some of these folks into treatment. And my comment this morning on, some of my comments that I get to re-see when I'm watching a premiere, because I'm watching the same damn video you are. So every day we release a video at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. So I sit in on the premiere, which is just the first time you get to see that video, right? It's up and available. So if you want to hang out with me and talk about ridiculous stuff, maybe not related to the video, but we're talking about Portland and talking about Bill Walton saying, hey, you got a famous, trailblazer NBA player talking about, you got to get people into you got to get these people into treatment. And he was being pretty hardcore. And you know what? That's what it's going to take. But literally, could you imagine if we just, took a whole bunch of law enforcement and rounded these people up and whisked them off in buses to destination unknown drug treatment? Ooh, yeah, that would be some fireworks, right? If there is no formal or informal pressure on addicted people to seek treatment and recovery and thereby stop using drugs, we should expect continuing high rates of drug use, addiction, and attendant harm. That's what's going to happen. Said Keith Humphreys, an addiction researcher and professor at Stanford University and former senior advisor to the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. Now, some people want to say, just let people make their choices. Well, people are making their choices right now. And again, I ask you, what does that look like? Is this getting better? Is the homeless situation getting better with decriminalizing drugs? With the harm reduction of, okay, yeah, we want you to be a better person, so here's your needle. And if the needle isn't working out for you, and I say this because this is a Seattle thing, here is your city-provided booty bump kit, meaning you can inject the drugs, in the booty, because your other veins are all, overworked. You can only shoot up so many times and then things start to collapse, right? So horrible, horrible situation when you're at a point where you can't inject reasonably and you got to put it in your backside. That's literally what this has come to. And taxpayer dollars in the city of Seattle at one point in time have paid for that. I don't know if that's still ongoing because that got some press. You know what I mean? Just like, what? You're doing what? Oh, okay. All right. It's almost as ridiculous as, having kindergartners entertained by drag queens. That whole thing is like, what? You're doing what? What? All right, here's the next paragraph. This one's got a little stat in here that it's good. Terrible, but good because you need to know it. Of 16,000 people who access services in the first year of decriminalization, 16,000, only 0.85% entered treatment. Less than 1% entered treatment. The health authority said a total of 60% received harm reduction, all right, like syringe exchanges, booty bump kit. I don't know if they do that in Oregon, but do that here in Washington, and overdose medications. All right, so there's 60% versus less than 1%. 60% are going there to get more drugs. That's just what they're doing, right? An additional 15% got help with housing needs and 12% obtained peer support. They're just hanging out with their friends, their buddies, whatever. So those stats tell the story, right? So 16,000 people, less than 1% entered treatment. 60%, vast majority of them are there to keep doing what they're already doing. They're, cleaning out their needles, doing whatever. The Drug Addiction Treatment and Recovery Act, also known as Measure 110, has become a campaign issue this year as Republicans seek to wrest the governorship from Democrats who have held it since 1987. Year I graduated from high school, right? So you've got this act and we're a couple years in, you've got all the money there. Now, the powers that be in Oregon are saying, we're having a tough time getting the money out into the general public where we know it can really do some good. Meanwhile, drug use is up because the vast majority of the people aren't going there. They're not using these services to get into treatment because nobody's forcing them to do so. So why would they? If nobody's telling them, hey, you got to go get some treatment, they're just not going to, are they? I voted no on Measure 110 because decriminalizing hard drugs like heroin and meth was and is a terrible idea, said GOP candidate Christine Drazen, who supports asking voters to repeal it. As expected, it has made our addiction crisis worse, not better. So, and, reasonable people would have said, okay, you decriminalize drugs, that's going to make it probably worse. You're not going to go out on a limb and go, all right, now that it's legal, I'm going to go get into treatment. It just doesn't work that way, right? And for all these folks that have access to the program that aren't going into treatment, they need more than a little nudge, don't they? They need, because otherwise their nudge can be a body bag. In the era of fentanyl, it can be a body bag. Because, we used to talk about heroin being the big threat. You get on the heroin, you get on the H, and, you could die from an overdose. Well, those statistics showed, all right, yeah, maybe, but the odds were lower. With fentanyl, it is happening, in massive numbers, 100-something thousand across the United States. And not all of those are fentanyl, but you get what I'm saying, right? Unaffiliated candidate Betsy Johnson, a former veteran lawmaker, said she would work to repeal what she called a failed experiment. A spokeswoman for Democratic candidate 𝐏𝐞𝐚𝐬𝐥𝐞, a former House Speaker, said Drazen and Johnson want to go against the will of the voters. Oregonians do not want to go backward. All right, so you've got Democrats saying, hey, this is what the people voted for. This is what they want to do. This is the situation they want to see. You know what? I bet you if you had that measure on the ballot again right now, after people saw what has happened, you know what I think they would do? They would say, no. Or, it is Oregon. Keep Portland weird. Maybe they would vote for it again. I mean, I can't really see that because I keep hearing, this is the ongoing trend. I keep hearing people talking about, you know what, in Oregon, maybe we just need to make, our vote count, and maybe we need to get away from all this because this doesn't appear to be working. It all doesn't appear to be working, right? The whole liberal utopia of, let's just decriminalize everything. Everybody's good people. You got to have some law and control. You got to have some law and order, and just decriminalizing everything. That's not going to necessarily work. People aren't going to necessarily make the right choices because clearly they're not with this program, with as few people are going into treatment as needed. Under the law, people receive a citation with the maximum $100 fine waived if they call a hotline for a health assessment. So it is a misdemeanor class E, I think it is what it's called. It's a possible $100 fine max. Or if you call a hotline for a health assessment or a drug treatment assessment, it's basically reduced. So, Measure 110, 100% decriminalized it, possession of hard drugs. So you're not going to go to jail for a felony offense. All right, I get that. But this has, this is, and I get the whole argument that if you got that on your record, it's harder to get a job. But guess what? There's, you go out and rob a bank, it's going to be harder to get a job too. That's illegal, right? So, I mean, not wanting people to be on hard drugs, I think, is an okay thing, because we've seen what happens when we just say, you know what, it's okay. Let them make their own decision. Let them make their own choice. We've seen what happens there. Yeah, drug use, it rises, doesn't it? It doesn't go down. It doesn't go down. But most of the more than 3,100 tickets issued so far have been ignored. All right, so we do have all these tickets and they've been ignored. So we're still handing out tickets, and guess what they're doing? Nothing. This has no impact on anything, right? Oregon Public Broadcasting reported this issue. Few people have dialed the hotline. So this program is an abject failure. And we knew it would be. I mean, there's no cop out there. There is guaranteed. I would lay a heavy bet on this. There is no cop out there who goes, oh yeah, Measure 110. That's going to work. That's going to work. That's going to, you know what? I'm totally behind it. That makes absolute sense. And these are the folks, these are the boys and girls that are out there on the front line seeing what's going on. And guaranteed, they all looked at Measure 110 and went, oh, there's a terrible idea waiting to happen. Oh, we're doing that? Oh, we're voting that in? Okay, let's see how this ride turns out. Tara Hurst, Executive Director of Oregon Health Justice Recovery Alliance, which is focused on implementing Measure 110, said, coerced treatment is ineffective. Here's the flip side. We're saying, hey, we need a little more than a little nudge to get these folks into treatment because they're not going to go there. Coerced treatment is ineffective. Her said it's more important to focus on just building a system of care to make sure that people who need access can get access. Well, if 0.85 or whatever it is of the population that probably needs this help, if that's all that's getting this help, this program is an absolute failure, which at this point in time, I think you can comfortably say Measure 110 is a distinct failure just by the numbers, right? Now, you might say, okay, give it a little bit more time because we need some more time to get the money into the programs that now people can go to and they can feel comfortable about getting their treatment. I don't think it works that way, right? What you see is what you get. These are the folks that want to get help. 0.85, less than 1%. Allen called the outlay of millions of dollars, which comes from taxes on Oregon's legal marijuana industry, a pivotal moment. Yeah, it is pivotal. It's a pivotal moment from the standpoint of other cities are looking on and going, all right, what are you doing? Oh, yeah, those are your stats? Okay, well, maybe we need to reimagine and rethink our approach because that's not working out, right? But again, this is Oregon. Things are always a little weird there. So, you're going to have these really aggressive marches towards what people think on a feeling basis should work. And then the hard reality is, which is where you come in from, maybe a law enforcement that sees this stuff on the front line, or people who are in the industry of trying to get people better. And they're saying, hey, you need more than a little nudge to get these folks to enter into treatment, especially if it's, their life is on the line. And it is. If this was a thing where, say it was like marijuana, you got people getting high, but nobody's dying. All right. Okay. Yeah. But you've got a national health crisis with as many people are, not waking up from their drug-induced whatever it is. Measure 110 is launching and will provide critical supports and services for people, families, and communities, he told the Senate committee. Okay. It will take time, though, to use the funds to build out the services. Okay, but we're saying there's a lot of people that need services. We're saying there's a lot of people that need housing. They're living in tents. Neither one of them actually want to use said services that are provided to them, do they? And sometimes they're one and the same. People with drug issues, in tents, living on the sidewalk, living on the streets. Most of those folks, whenever you see homeless encampment sweep stats, they don't accept housing. They don't accept shelter. They don't accept what the city is offering them. They want to do their own thing. They don't want to go to treatment, right? They don't want to live with rules. Centro Latino Americano, a nonprofit serving Latino immigrant families, plans to use its $4.5 million share to move treatment services to a bigger space and hire more staff, said manager Basilio Sandoval. Measure 110 makes it possible for us to provide this service free of charge, Sandoval said. This allows us to reach people we could not serve previously because of a lack of insurance. Scott Winkles, lobbyist for the League of Oregon Cities, said residents are running out of patience. They want results. And that is what I am hearing through the grapevine is, hey, you know what? This isn't a scenario where we're allowing people to live willy-nilly wherever. This scenario where you're allowing shooters to just run through the city and have their way with the general population. This scenario of garbage and downtown look that's just horrible like you've got in Portland. Maybe this isn't our long-term future. Maybe we actually need to make a change here and bring in somebody else in charge to make these decisions. That's what you're hearing the rumblings of out there. Will we see it in this year's midterm elections? Well, you've got a governor race in Oregon that's going to be pretty interesting. That's an interesting one. And you've got a Republican that's doing some work. But this is a blue state. It's a blue state like Washington State. Eastern Washington, man, it runs red. You got the Trump signs. You got all that because you've got farmers. You've got people that are self-employed. You've got people that are, small town values. You don't have this crazy downtown Seattle stuff. What happens on 3rd Avenue in downtown Seattle? It's pretty normal. It's okay. We just, it's not a big deal. That issue is still going on. So, but in the rest of Washington, people vote blue. And then we wonder, how did we get here? But what we had happen in our mayor, city of Seattle mayor, we kind of went with a guy who went on a law enforcement deal, and he's been doing some work. Now, some people are saying he hasn't really done enough, but he's doing something. All right. He talks a lot. Mayor Bruce talks a lot, but he's cleared out a lot of the encampments. Now, you might say that's just pushing people around, but he's going down that road of saying, hey, you can't live willy-nilly wherever you want. People are looking for that type of leadership. They're looking for something a little bit more than, we got 300 something million and it's going to take some time. And, just got to wait for this to work itself out, even though less than 1% of the people coming to us are, getting the treatment they need. Going to have to do a little bit more than a nudge, right? That's what it's going to take. What is that going to be? What's that going to be? People are going to need to see progress, Winkle said. We're back to the lobbyist for the League of Oregon Cities. If you're living in a community where you're finding needles, how many times do you need to see a needle in a park before you lose your cool? That's the question of the hour, right? That's the question of the hour. How long does the city say, okay, how long has San Francisco said that? Yeah, forever, right? Still dealing with it. Portland, same thing. You're working on that. Seattle, same thing. How many times do we go to Denny Park and see all the needles and then, we need it cleared out. You got to clear it out and then you've got to enforce it. Like I talked about with Bill Walton. Bill Walton said you need constant enforcement. And I was like, Bill, that almost sounds like you are looking at, almost like I hate to say it, but Nazi type state, constant enforcement. Yeah. But, I hear what he's saying and you hear what I'm saying as well too, right? You need some kind of enforcement to make sure that people know, okay, you can't just do your own thing and then you get swept. You come back and just start doing it again. You can't do that. You need enforcement of this because people have gotten the wrong idea and they've run with it for so long that it's become the norm in a lot of these West Coast and East Coast cities that this stuff happens in. You don't see much of this in the Midwest, do you? I mean, you've got some of it in Chicago and you got some of it in Minneapolis. Those are your two big hits, right? Majority of small town U.S. cities, you do not see this craziness go on. And so much of it has to do with leadership and the decisions they make. In Oregon, you got this Measure 110. Where's that going to go? Because they're siphoning money from the legal marijuana trade, although it's not legal on the federal level, the state level. They're taking that money and it's supposed to go to people who need help the most. And yet those are the people that are utilizing this program the least, like less than 1% of those who need the help are choosing to get it. So that's where, you've got to do something more than, well, you know what, it might not be a bad idea for you to, call into a help hotline and, see, answer a few questions and see what you've got going on. No, unfortunately, these folks are on a pathway. Unless they get into detox, unless they get into the treatment they need, they're probably going to lose their life. And those stats are out there. And until our politicians look at that and go, okay, cause and effect. Yeah, nothing's going to change. But that's where we're at right now is we're looking at the stats going, okay, yeah, not much has changed. Interesting. Who would have called that one? All right, well, let's throw another 300-400 million to it and we'll just, hope for the best and maybe some people can get the treatment that they need. You're going to have to drop the hammer till we do that, till we're ready to do that, till we're at a point where we figure out how to do that in a way that, doesn't just absolutely rock everybody's boat. I think you're going to see much of the same. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thank you so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.